speak into the microphone. Position that around wherever the questions are coming from. Okay, just make sure you're speaking into the microphone and we can hear you. Do you swear or affirm? Oh, raise your right hand. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you are about to provide is true and accurate?
I do.
Thank you, Mr. Murray.
Mr. Kracht, please state your name for the record.
Gregory Kracht.
And in these proceedings, are you the same person that submitted written pre-filed testimony on July 14, 2023?
Yes.
And that was accompanied by, I believe, Exhibits 1, 2, and 3?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any corrections with respect to your written pre-filed testimony?
There are, yes, there is.
Okay. I'm going to ask the tech person to bring up page 7. And on page 111, or excuse me, line 111, there is a question there that says, how did Summit respond to your offer? And on line 112, you answered, at that time, I have not received a reply to my offer. They have ignored me. Today, is there any updates or corrections to that?
Yes, there is.
Okay, what are those corrections or updates?
Well, in the early part of September here, they got back to, they responded to me, and their offer was the same as it was a year prior, and they had the route back where it wouldn't work, as it seemed as a punishment to me for not agreeing with them at the time. And so, yeah, that's where we're at. There was nothing new as far as an offer goes, and they left the route where it does not work at all.
Your Honor, I offer the written testimony along with Exhibits 1, 2, and 3.
Are there objections?
No objection.
Seeing no objections, the board will admit the evidence. Give it the way due.
Tender the witness.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor, your card's up.
Thank you. Mr. Kracht, you said in your written testimony that you have a wooded, picturesque lot with a pond and a stream, and you're anticipating future development, but you didn't expand on what that future development would be, when you plan to do that, if you've had any actions taken to start that development. Can you help us out there?
I have not made any actions or taken any actions to do that, but when I bought the ground in 2011, there was that was the intent behind it. Is I'm grazing it now, and there's a housing development just to the west of it, and that was the idea behind paying too much for it, in my opinion, was because there was great potential in developing it because of the picturesque and just the lay of the land.
Okay, how far would your land be from a city or an area where people would build?
How far would it be?
Let me ask it a different way.
Yeah.
Usually a residential development like this with big lots is at least somewhat close to a city or other urban area. What's the status of your property in terms of nearby cities?
Well, it would be I guess the value in it is the fact that it's not near a city, and it would attract somebody who would enjoy the natural, picturesque, secluded environment. So just like the development that is to the west of me, there's already 3 or 4 homes there that are, yeah, so it's the exact opposite of an urban development.
Okay. So there is some history, at least, of that area being developed for residences?
That's right.
Okay. in your clarification this morning, you said that Summit has now come back with a new easement agreement that you said put the property back, or put the easement back in its original location. Can you explain what this the discussion with the Summit was as far as locations of the route?
Yes, I can. When they first approached me about it, I told them to go away. And then they pressed it, and I said, well, if there's even a chance, if there's even a chance of crossing the property, it cannot be there, because if that is the only access point to over half of the property, because of the pond and the lay of the land. And so they moved it over to the west side, and we were in agreement that that was doable if all the other terms were met. And then when we submitted our proposal to them, they instantly came back and said, well, we're going to move it back to where it was then, not where we had moved it to.
Okay. So, did you have any discussion with the land agent about that?
Yeah, I did. I expressed my, but that kind of, well, actually, I haven't had much contact with him since I involved an attorney. I don't think I've had any contact with him actually since I've involved an attorney.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
As the situation exists right now, how far would the pipeline be from any existing buildings, including residences?
I would be guessing, but I would say within 500 to 750 feet.
Okay. And where's the closest emergency management personnel?
I would probably 7 or 8 miles.
And where would that be?
What town?
Yes.
Inwood would be the closest town.
Would that impact your development plans?
Would what?
The location regarding safety?
Yeah, I don't think there would be. To me, that's what devalues the property is the fact that I'm going to try to sell a lot with the toxic chemical flowing through the backyard of someone. I don't know that they're going to want to build their house there.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Mr. Jorde? Oh, I'm sorry. I believe Ms. Colas was first.
That's
okay. Good morning, Mr. Kraft. I'm Jean Colas with Colas Family Farms. And regarding your negotiations, did Summit at any time give you any risk or hazard analysis of the pipeline?
I guess I don't remember it if they did.
Okay. You're aware of the various incidents in Sartatius, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And which is very concerning. Do you have a volunteer emergency response team?
I think the closest town would be volunteer, yes.
Do you have concerns about how they would afford the proper equipment or training to respond to an incident?
I think anybody would. Yeah.
Okay. Did you watch the testimony from the individual who was in charge, who handled the response team at the Sartatius?
I have not watched any testimonies.
Okay. Basically, he said he didn't have any plume modeling or anything. Do you think that's necessary? for people to know, to have that information made public?
Say that again.
Do you think that the plume modeling should be made public to the people that are directly affected or indirectly affected by the pipeline?
Yes.
Do you think that a pipeline should be built for monetary or private industry versus for the good of the people?
I do not think it should be.
Do you think that they should have proceeded with eminent domain because of that?
I do not think they should proceed with eminent domain.
Okay. And I just want, okay. Also, that one individual, I can look at this name and find us, who was the supervisor of that incident in Mississippi, also indicated the incident happened in February. But also in October of the same year, they had to do maintenance on the line, where they voluntarily released one of the valves to release the pressure in the valve. And in the process of relieving that pressure, the valve froze open, and the continuous plume continued to be expelled for up to 24 hours. It covered over, I don't remember exactly how many, 17 miles or something that was released. And so, do you have concerns about the maintenance or the quality of the pipeline when it's in operation?
I absolutely have concerns.
Okay. Is there anything else that you think the board should know?
I guess I just am very frustrated with the tactics that took place in the negotiations. I mean, we seem to be. I was reluctantly going along, and then I finally get to where I give a proposal, and then I feel like I get met by a punishment or a threat to go back to something that absolutely doesn't work for me. And so, yeah, I don't like the negotiation tactics.
Okay. Thank you very much. No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Jorde.
I just wanted to follow up on that. In response to one of your answers, you mentioned that you initially said you weren't interested, and then they, meaning Summit, pressed you. The word pressed, is that your word for they kept coming at you? I mean, were they intimidating you, or you felt pressured or threatened, or what were you?
It would be pressure. I guess I wouldn't go as far as to say there was intimidation. The only time I've felt threatened or whatever is when they when we started to actually negotiate, when they went back to like, take this or this is going to happen. But my initial response was go away, and it was for the first 4 to 5 times the agent stopped at my place, and finally he said, was there a chance that we could just do some surveying to see if everything checks out the way it needs to be? I said, I suppose you can, but I said, I think you're wasting your time. And they proceeded, and then once they had that done, the visits became far more frequent, and it just kept. I mean, he'd sit in front of the shop for as long as it took for me to show up and never up. I mean, I never felt threatened, but it was very pressuring.
Okay. Well, you don't seem like a guy that would threaten easily. But at some point, you obviously hired counsel. You just threw your hands up, or what led to that decision?
Well, I don't think about it a lot because I have a lot going on in my business, and so finally, when the pressure was getting ratcheted up, and I could see the move, or the fear of moving towards eminent domain, I felt like I needed to reach out to somebody that could spend some time and knew the law, and that's when I hired John.
So would you say the threat and kind of the cloud of eminent domain has caused you to incur cost and expense in hiring counsel?
Absolutely.
All right. How many hours would you say, sir, that you have spent, you or your family, learning, researching, dealing with the Summit, their agents, talking to them, all of that, roughly?
I don't keep track of my time very well, and I don't feel like I probably get paid for it, so that's probably why. But I mean, he was there. There was a period of time where I would deal with the agent every 2 weeks for a prolonged time. He'd propose and talk and trying to be a good old boy, and so I don't know if I'd even venture a guess at the time.
And have Summit at any time offered to compensate you for all of that time spent and lost from what you would have rather been doing?
No.
Okay. All right. I don't have anything further. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Grunhagen?
Thank you, Your Honor. Could staff please pull up the KMZ file for LY-016? I just have some questions about your proposed alternate route.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So is the route, in looking at your exhibits, I'm just trying to picture it over top of the terrain here. The route in the exhibit H, where the current white line is, that's on top of the hill?
Correct.
Okay. And then where you want it moved is farther to the west?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a residence right there on the adjoining property?
That's the one I said was 500 to 750 feet.
Okay. Do you live in that house?
I do not.
Okay. That's a neighbor?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Coles, did you have a follow-up? Just double checking. Okay. All right. If there are no more questions from the party, Mr. Murray for redirect. Oh, board questions? No. Mr. Murray for redirect.
You were asked about the eminent domain issue, and I wanted to follow up with you on clarification. Your property is located how close to South Dakota?
I think it's, like you could probably see on the map, but I think it's within a mile or a mile and a half because the river's the border.
Okay. So, that we're all clear, how far north from Sioux City are you? Approximately, would you say?
70 miles?
70? So if South Dakota did not approve the pipeline and this eminent domain happened on your property, apparently someone would have to take a left turn and go south into Nebraska 70 miles. Is that basically the sum of it?
That'd be right.
Thank you. No further questions.
Right. Mr. Kracht, thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Okay. Mr. Murray, I believe that's it, correct?
Those are my witnesses.
Thank you very much. Mr. Goodwin? Whoop, great. Microphone, please.
I would call Jamie Mosier.